Welcome back to the Tripping Off podcast. Quick question. Have you ever sat with a trauma client, done everything right, followed the treatment plan, but something still wasn't reaching them?
Yes. Jesse and I spent our careers working with complex trauma and PTSD, and we kept hitting that same exact wall. That's what led us to hypnotherapy. It's genuinely changed the way we do therapy and the way that we work with our patients and clients.
We built trauma-focused hypnotherapy for people who want better tools for their work.
The course consists of 50 CEUs, fully self-paced, and it's certified with the Department of Health.
It's a protected title, not just another weekend certification course. And we offer group discounts if your team wants to train together. Link is in the description down below. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the final episode of the Love Series with your two favorite hypnotherapists, Zach and Jesse. This will be a little bit of a wrap up and, psychological safety. We talked about the body, we talked about the emotions, we talked about the nervous system, talked about the subconscious communications. But today, we really want to drive that point home of relationships are built through the small interactions and creating that safety. I've been working a lot on this topic. I think in my life, and I was sharing with some interns and some colleagues, like in my life, safety wasn't an option growing up. You were alone, and there was nobody coming to rescue you. And in space, nobody can hear you scream. And so I think my realization this week, after like doing these past 4 weeks of this podcast, has been to realize how much I can skip that pyramid. For anyone who's unaware, there's a pyramid, Maslow's hierarchy of needs for creatures, and right above physiological needs, sleep, food, are the needs of safety. And then you have relationships, confidence, self-actualization. Oftentimes I will skip right from, well, I have food to eat and a place to sleep, so it's time to be confident. Can't be confident if you don't feel safe to do so. And so I've been thinking about that a lot and how that plays into relationships and how I can often unintentionally minimize that very normal human need. And so I want to share that. I've been growing a lot through this series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just to add to that, I think that from my personal experience too, I think that I can oftentimes think I feel safer when there is chaos. And I can think I feel safer when there's drama or crisis. And I think that's a lot of people's experience is, I know this crisis, and so I feel more comfortable, but I'm not actually safer. I'm not actually in a place that has the psychological safety that I need to go up that scale.
Comfort and safety can be opposites for those who've experienced trauma.
Yeah.
What is comfortable is probably not safe. What is familiar is probably not safe, because comfort is more of an expression of familiarity than it is actual safety.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to be like, oh, well, this feels comfortable, so it must be safe. It's not.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
In my last therapy session as a client, I told my therapist that I really appreciated the fact that on multiple occasions I have gone back and told her a story that I hadn't previously told her about some sort of physical violence or trauma that I experienced. And what I appreciated about the most is that she hasn't, like a lot of other therapists that I've had, she hasn't been like, oh my God, what is that? We have to talk about that thing. And I'm like, to the other therapist, I have been like, well, I've really all processed this and I can talk about it if you need me to talk about it. But it seemed like me just sharing my experience has been traumatic to other therapists. And then I need to caretake for them, which I know, which is why I don't talk about a lot of the physical violence that I've seen.
Yeah.
And instead she's just asked, hey, she's challenged me and said, is this something that we need to talk about, or is this something that you're just using as a metaphor or an experience or an example or something like that? And more often than not, it's the latter.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think about clients who walk into my office and sit on this couch talking about somebody they're interested in, and they're processing through it, trying to figure out like if it's right to pursue or not, and they'll be like, well, it just feels too quiet, like there's no chemistry there, there's no attraction there's no excitement there. And I have to pause and make them stop and say, well, is the type of excitement you're looking for something that's healthy for the relationship, or are you just looking for the relationship to feel familiar?
Yeah.
And you're in a healthy relationship, so it doesn't feel familiar. I had a client just this morning before we started recording here who was having a conversation. They're like, Jesse, I can say these things and work on this safety with myself, but I don't feel it. I'm like, yes. Think about any other thing. She has a pet that she cares about quite a lot. And I was like, how do you communicate to that pet? You say it first, and then through consistency, they develop that trust.
Yeah.
Think about a child, right? Like I talked about my son, like, he's very nervous about putting his head underwater, right? When we're giving him a bath and washing his hair. And so what do? I tell him, like, Dad does right here, you're safe. I'll take care of you. And so then he gets his courage up and he dunks his head underwater and he comes out, he looks at me and I'm looking at him very calmly. I'm like, you did it. Good job. And I was like, look, you're all right. And he thinks to his little self, well, didn't kill me. I'm not dead. And so then it's a little less next time, and then a little less next time. And so we're building a new system of familiarity that leads to relationships. Sure, it may feel too quiet. It may feel, different than what your nervous system typically responds to. But the argument is that may be what you need.
Yeah.
Sometimes being too quiet and being in a relationship that's healthy requires a lot of work. Yeah, I was telling this individual, that sat on my couch and was talking about the too quiet. I'm like, there's two parts. You need safety, but you also are in a relationship, and they are pulling in opposite directions. So you're going to feel extra tired, right? You're still trying to convince yourself of safety, but you're also trying to build a healthy relationship. When the relationship doesn't feel normal, your hypervigilance starts to creep in. And so maybe it's this stressful to live a normal relationship, but then because of the past, it's actually this stressful because now you're in the hypervigilance stage. And so, you're in the in-between of, well, I don't have a normal relationship and I still have the hypervigilance. Mm-hmm. That's not going to last forever, but right now you're going to be tired. That's okay. Eventually one of those will drop off and you just have the I'm building safety in the relationship, not the also hypervigilant piece.
And that feeling of tiredness is oftentimes the thing that gets people out of relationships rather than waiting it through, pressing in, being more vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Allowing yourself to be in a situation that you would have been hurt in when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And then trusting that you won't be hurt.
Yeah. They brought up this client I'm talking about. They brought up the situation like, well, my partner does tell me like nice and encouraging things, but it doesn't make me feel any better. I was like, well, do you believe those nice encouraging things that they're telling you? I was like, they could tell you till they're blue in the face, but if you're not also telling those things to yourself, how could you accept them as truth? You're going to be thinking, what are they hiding from me?
Yeah.
And so there's also this piece of you're working on saying it to yourself while you're also working on receiving it from somebody else, but you can't receive it until you also are telling yourself those things. One of the examples that we talked about in that session was they made some kind of what they felt was a mistake. It wasn't really a big mistake. They're like, I felt like I did something wrong. And so I said, did you tell yourself that it's okay to make mistakes in relationships? Because your partner's saying that, but of course you're not going to believe your partner because you don't believe it.
Right.
So you could even have a perfect partner who's saying all these things, but you don't feel any different because you haven't. We can only love somebody else in the ways that we've learned to love ourselves. And so it was a really cool moment of, we hear that of like, you can't give love until you learn to give yourself love. But it's like, there was a great in the moment example. Like, yeah, they can say all those nice things, but if you're not saying them to yourself, how could you absorb it?
You're just not.
No.
But not only that, it's going to create some sort of resistance in a wall between you and your partner. If they're saying these things that you're not taking in, you're gonna not only not believe them for yourself, but push them away.
Yeah. So that brings up the topic of conflict. How do you handle conflict in a healthy relationship in a way that creates safety psychologically?
Fight.
Yeah, in a healthy way.
In a healthy way, absolutely in a healthy way. But that those conversations where it's really tough, the point is, I think, to engage, to joust, to do that with yourself and the voices and the parts inside of you, rather than just with your partner in a defensive way. That's the key. There is the fight coming from wanting to learn more, or is the fight coming about yourself and your partner, or is the fight coming from needing to defend a safety or a stance or a belief inside of you?
What I think we're really describing is, you see it all the time. They always say, oh, good guys, good girls finish last. What we're really describing is exactly that. Like, why that's the case. And it's both ways. It's not just that the world is unfair to nice guys, nice girls. It's that what feels or is experienced as boring is probably your defense system from this is unfamiliar.
Yeah.
I don't need to look at this. This is boring. This relationship is there's no chemistry. There's no, fire here. Is there? Or is that you avoiding the growth that is your responsibility?
Yeah.
And so that's both ways. It could be the partner that you're with that feels exciting isn't going to stay with you because they're not pressing into the boring relationship that is a healthy one. It could also be you of, I'm a nice guy, nice girl, and so like people just find me boring. Well, but are you, because of your trauma, being a nice guy, nice girl, and also avoiding the conflict that needs to happen?
Yes.
Maybe you're not a nice guy, nice girl. Maybe you are, but not actually nice as in a healthy partner, because you're also avoiding the boring, healthy process conflict that comes in a relationship.
And you had a really, really profound note here. That is built through small, unglamorous moments being met instead of managed.
Ooh.
And I think that's really important. Is the management is the not pressing in. It's like the management of the symptoms rather than what's actually going on. It's trying to create, or it's trying to curate the way things look rather than what really needs to be addressed.
In any relationship, there's going to be two different perspectives of reality. And so the conflict should be comparing those two experiences of reality to see, well, what new thing do I need to discover? For example, we were just talking about this before we started. My wife's love language is gifts. My experience growing up was not that love languages were gifts. Growing up, my mom, people would often buy her gifts that she didn't ask for. And she would tell them very clearly, like, this is the thing I'm really excited about. This is the thing I really want. And then they would buy something very different. And that's very frustrating. And so the love language for my mother is, well, here's the thing, shape, size, color that I want, for this holiday. So you get that thing. And so that's how I grew up too, of like, oh, well, this is my wish list. These are the shape, size, color of the thing that I want. My wife, it's not about that at all. And so I get into this huge, like, oh my gosh, my mom's gonna feel unloved if I just choose something that made me think of her throughout the week. That's gonna be a problem for her. She's gonna re-experience her childhood trauma. But for my wife, that's the whole point. I would much rather you buy something that I don't actually use and like isn't right at all, but you spent the time thinking about like what I do in my week and what I really need. And that's how she feels loved. That creates a whole bundle of chaos inside of me. So I'm leaning into the conflict. It's hard. It's really hard to do. And I avoid it because I'm like, oh, I'm just too busy. You're not too busy to, when you scrolled by that ad on Instagram, that you're like, oh, that reminds me of Joy, my wife. Just buy the thing. That's how she experiences it. It's actually easier, but it's unfamiliar. So doing that enough times in those small moments creates the trust and the safety. Just like with my son, hey, we're gonna, in the safety and comfort of me being right here, giving you a bath, we're gonna practice your head underwater. Well, you do that enough times, he sees, okay, it's safe. But it's those small moments, man.
Yeah.
And he'll trust me with bigger stuff when he gets older. What do you see?
So what destroys that trust and intimacy? It's oftentimes that moment when we don't press into kind of what you were talking about just there. It's when we use the excuse of, well, I'm just too busy. It's when we use the excuse of that's uncomfortable or I don't know it. So going back to the point of what's comfortable, versus what is going to bring secure attachment and trust and love, is falling back into those old habits of what I learned from my parents, rather than what does this human being in front of me actually need. And I think that's the really a key point there, is we act so much on autopilot that we just know these things to be true, but it's such a different story. And I, like Joy, have that love language of, I don't need anything. Like if I really do need something, I'm gonna buy it for myself. And the thing that somebody gets me that's weird or thought about or something along those lines means so much to me, because this person actually put thought into it. And so like Thea, my wife, is getting a lot better at that.
Cool.
And it used to be where it was like gifts of, she saw that I was lacking something and I may have been frustrated with something, so she got that thing for me. That was very practical.
That's usually what I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not it either.
But she'll get it because she knew that I needed one of those things, but in between getting it and whenever the time was to give me a gift, I had already bought two.
Yeah, okay.
Cool, thanks.
Already solved that.
Right?
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so true. Yeah.
And so it's the weird, she bought me a poster recently that was an artist rendition of like 4 different horror movies and like one poster that probably cost like $20, and she got it for me. And before the end of the day, I had already purchased a frame for it. I picked out a place for it. I spent so much time with this because it was something that meant so much to me.
Wow.
That it was also like the main focus of it was a character that I very much identify with, and I really like. But it was just weird, and it was a one of a kind thing that I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah. Because
she saw it and she thought about me. I'd rather her do that and then give it to me than have anything for my birthday. And seeing the change, actually, I think is the most, is the biggest thing that brings us together, of me knowing that is not easy for her.
Yeah.
And then she did it thinking about me.
Yep.
And so it's the subtle stuff that I think makes the biggest difference, especially with hypnotic suggestions.
Before we get back to the episode, let me ask you something.
Have you ever sat with a trauma patient, done solid clinical work, followed the treatment plan, said the exact right thing, and you still felt like you were circling the actual problem?
Zach and I lived in that frustration for years. We were licensed, experienced, and trained professionals, still running into the same limitations time and time again. Hypnotherapy was not just a gimmick for us, it was the missing piece that allowed us to target these symptoms directly and work with the subconscious processes that were driving these symptoms.
And that's why we built Trauma-Focused Hypnotherapy. It's a 50 CEU course that is fully self-paced, meant for medical professionals. It's certified with the Department of Health, and so it ties directly to your clinical license.
This is not a weekend badge. It's a protected title allowing you to do the deeper clinical work necessary to work with those trauma clients. If you care about this field and you're passionate about the work we are doing in raising the standard of mental health care in this field, subscribing to the course does more than just give you the skills that we're talking about. It actually supports us in continuing this work, making this podcast, and teaching other professionals so they can help people live the lives they were always meant to live. The link is in the description down below. Join us and let's build something better together. Now back to the episode.
What do you think?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going somewhere with that.
Oh, I thought that you had...
No, that wasn't a disagreement. It was like, yeah, okay, bring it back to hypnosis.
Yeah. Because what that does is it plants like a seed in my head, not that she just got me something, it plants the seed in my head of she cares and thinks about me, because that was her going against what is natural for her and creating something and a space for that is special to me. And so the inverse of that, the things that destroy relationships are the normal, this is what's good for me, so it should be good for you. This is how I receive love, so this is how you should receive love.
Yeah, avoiding those conflicts.
Yeah.
They're so subtle. They don't feel like conflicts in the moment oftentimes, but they're more uncomfortable than real conflicts sometimes.
Yeah.
It's consistency, showing up for a person. Mm-hmm. You know, I think we've talked enough about how what's familiar is probably not healthy, and so it's adrenaline in your body that may be familiar rather than actual safety. You know, and adrenaline is not chemistry. It's not magic. It's not butterflies. It's a trauma response.
It is a trauma response.
Yeah, and
that's what again destroys these relationships. You had another really good quote here. The subtle stuff is context is the subtle stuff of falling into my default mode of expressing things like love or any emotion. The subtle stuff is worse than the obvious. Never being wrong, forgiven but not forgotten, always reading the room before speaking is like those subtle ways that we retreat back to that normative pattern that we learned when we were kids. Is often so destructive and not thought about. And because it's not thought about, our partners are going to feel not thought about because the interaction isn't thought about.
So true.
And then trying to overcome that, usually what we do in a defensive mindset is double down on defending our egos and why we did that subtle thing, rather than saying, I need to be vulnerable and take responsibility for the fact that I didn't do how you feel loved.
Yeah, that's huge. So many couples I talk to, they'll get into a conflict like that, and the partner who is receiving the conflict, you know, hey, I'm frustrated about this. They're the one that is frustrated with, will jump right into managing.
Yeah.
Right? They'll jump into, well, I did it because of this, or it happened that way because of this, or, well, I wasn't trying to do that, I was trying to do this. And then it turns into a pushing away of the partner's emotions. Of, well, now I'm not attending to your feelings that you were bold and courageous, vulnerable to share with me. I'm protecting myself from the perceived assault of, I made a mistake. And in that moment, you missed it, right? Your trauma is overwhelming the situation that's in front of you. And what they're trying to say is, hey, I got hurt and frustrated by this. It's an attempt. Will you care for me, even though I know it's hard for you to hear that I'm frustrated with you? Can I be frustrated and still receive care? And if you do that consistently, oh my gosh, the relationships that you can have are incredible.
Right.
But most people jump to the defense, and then their partner doesn't feel heard. And then it creates this pattern of, I'm not safe psychologically to share my frustrations with my partner.
Because my emotions are unwelcome. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it. And so in that moment, it's hard. It's going to take a lot. It is not easy. It is not boring to say, can you tell me more about how that was frustrating?
Right.
Tell me what a non-frustrating way for me to do that looks like.
And if I can't say, or if I feel, because that is my issue, if I can't say I'm frustrated with something, I'm going to be less likely to say I'm happy with something. Which just degrades the whole process. If I can't express to you, like, hey, that was really frustrating, and you go, I can see that.
Yeah.
That makes sense with the person that I know you to be.
Like, oh yeah, I bet that was really frustrating.
Then I'm not going to go, hey, I really loved it when you...
Right, why would you? The foundation of safety has not been built.
All right.
Ooh, that's good. That's good.
And the kind of going on with that is adrenaline is not chemistry. We've been talking about that a little bit.
What are you thinking?
But just kind of bringing it back to that state of I was vulnerable. That is exciting, but in a fight, flight, or freeze response, in a trauma response.
Yeah.
And oftentimes what happens is that people will double down on that and then go straight back to, this is exciting. I think that that's really dangerous in relationships, because what I see a lot of patterns are is that the relationship becomes about how we fight. You didn't take care of me when I said I was frustrated about this. I'm not going to take care of you when you say that you're frustrated about that.
Such distance.
Yeah. And I think that adrenaline point can go both ways. It can be like the negative emotions, but it can also be positive emotions, like makeup sex.
Yeah.
Well, this is our pattern. We're just like high energy. A pattern that I see a lot, but that doesn't last forever.
No.
It doesn't actually last for very long.
No, you get these happy chemicals for 30 minminutes.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a natural biological response, but you can't build a relationship on that. You know?
Yeah.
Because you get old and body parts stop working the right way. It's just also not great when there's big issues to tackle.
Yeah.
It can't just be makeup sex.
Yeah, or other people, other relationships get in the way too, because they become easier. And or kids, you know, like we don't have time to have sex for the makeup sex that we used to have, because kids are knocking on the door.
Yeah. Even more, think about the implications for jealousy. If the only thing that keeps our relationship psychologically safe is the passionate makeup sex afterwards, then if my partner has passionate sex with somebody else, they have the same level of safety that I do. How can I trust that? But if you've spent years with somebody, opening up and watching them set aside their discomfort with feeling frustrated at you, or you receiving that frustration, and you can say, hey, let me care for you in this moment. I see how that was frustrated.
Yeah.
Nobody can replicate those years of building that safety and trust with each other, even if there was, you know, some kind of sexual escapade. Now, I'm not saying there should be a sexual escapade or cheating on your partner, but just think about how that's going to relieve some of the nervousness, jealousy, paranoia that creeps in with partners that I talk to all the time, because their whole relationship is based on the passionate sex. There's more. The passionate sex is great, but there's more to it. Like when you also have the emotional safety, wow, nobody can steal that from you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
I think that the only way to help with that, I shouldn't say the only way, but probably the most effective way to deal with that is giving it the time and the space for a retraining of patterns. So if we're in a relationship, I see that something is off. There's a retraining that I need to do, not just of the patterns that we have in the relationship, but the default patterns of deep belief about how I need to interact with the world. Because I think it starts off with that in the hypnotic suggestions that we've been given since we were little kids.
Yeah.
Is there has to be a retraining, which is both a relational process and a relational, let me say, hypnotic process, but it's also an internal process when parts of me come up and they're just like, this is unsafe, let's retreat back to an old way of doing things, rather than pressing into the communication and the emotional response that happened between us.
Yeah. Man, and therapists are so bad at this. They often don't like conflict, and so they don't do it with their clients. And I think one of the big challenges for becoming a hypnotherapist is relationships are a type of hypnosis. Romantic ones as well as professional ones. You know, a huge part of the hypnosis that I'm doing is the relationship I have with the individual I'm working with. And so if I'm not able to press into that conflict and say, hey, how are we doing? Or, you know, hey, last time that we did hypnosis, you know, I noticed that you didn't feel the way that you expected to feel, or you didn't feel the way that you wanted to feel. Could you voice your frustrations? And I just listen. Oh man, therapists are really bad at that oftentimes. They're so conflict avoidant. I often invite my clients to do that, and it's a very important part of the work.
It's so important. I can't emphasize that anymore.
Yeah. It's so, yes. Oftentimes I'll talk through something. I'll be like, well, listen, I'm not sure, but here's a thought, and I would like for you to poke holes in this idea. You know, so I'm inviting the conflict. It's like, can you tell me where I'm wrong? This is what I'm thinking so far. And so I'll be like, it sounds like this is happening because of this and this situation. And then they'll add, well, I wouldn't use that word. I would use this word. I'll be like, oh, thank you. And I verbalize my appreciation for their correction, which I know is hypnotically setting a new pattern in their brain. I'm modeling a healthy romantic relationship in the professional setting. But if you're a counselor who struggles with that conflict, you're never going to be able to give clients that gift. And what's the foundation of trauma-focused hypnotherapy? Clients only change through a present experience of a future potential. If I can't give them the experience of healthy conflict resolution and holding space for that conflict in the therapy room, how will they ever be able to do it out there? That's my job.
Yeah, I saw a reel from a therapist just the other day, and the therapist was being challenged to say the therapist talk to a client, and was given like it was like one of those like translator, like, as a therapist, how would you say you need to dump your boyfriend? As a therapist, how would you say, you know, you're getting into a relationship that's toxic? And the therapist so beautifully made those things nicer. And I kind of had feelings about it, but not until you just said that did I know exactly how I felt. But it was that. It was like avoiding conflict by saying something nice to your client. I'm not saying just tell your clients like you need to dump your boyfriend. That's not the case at all. It's how nice she made it that I was like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. It feels like you're trying to avoid a tough conversation.
It feels like passive aggressive. Yeah. Instead of just saying the thing, you just kind of like passively aggressively, you sabotage stuff. That's not healthy for a relationship. I mean, in both romantic relationships and professional relationships with clients, I often invite and want the space to say things that I might not totally mean. Yeah. And I'll preface it. I'll be like, well, you know, so that question of like, well, have we entertained the idea of what would it be like if you just dumped him?
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, I don't necessarily think you should do that, but have we talked that through?
Yeah.
And so I'm inviting the conflict, you know, and I'm like, well, let me play the role of you should dump him, and you play the role of I shouldn't dump him, and we'll argue this out, and then maybe we'll switch.
Yeah.
You tell me the reasons you should dump him, and I'll tell you the reasons you shouldn't. So that way we can see the whole picture. And that happens in romance too, of like, well, we always, you do the dishes and I do the trash. Ooh, what would it be like if we switched it? I don't know if I want to do that, but let's just talk it through.
Yeah.
Such simple conflict, but to be able to see like, well, if I have the space to be able to say things I don't even fully believe, I just want to like be creative and practice and, play make-believe with, how much safer do I feel for the things that I do have a strong emotional opinion about?
Especially on things that have previously been suggested to me that is not a safe topic for me to talk about.
Yes. We got to wrap up.
Yeah.
This has been fun doing this 4-part series. I'd love to find, the next one. We've talked about making some React videos. So I think that'll be our next little project. We'll find some terrible counseling advice on YouTube and just react to it. I think it's gonna be so fun. But I guess the big piece of advice for me is pause. Just because you feel something doesn't mean that it automatically says this. There are emotions, and then there are what those emotions are saying. Don't forget the step of verbalizing the emotions and then asking yourself, what does this mean? Because sometimes boring jumps right to, we should break up. Sometimes exciting or adrenaline means they're perfect. They're my match. Sometimes anxiety means I didn't do good enough. When the actual truth is the anxiety says this person's not safe to be around.
Yeah.
And so if there's one piece of advice, have the conflict within yourself and with your clients to say, let's label that emotion and then ask ourselves, what is this saying, rather than jumping to a conclusion.
Yeah.
What's your...
I think that, just to add to that, I think that we get so confused with the difference between what is normal and maybe toxic, and but feels safe, but it actually creates some really terrible hypnotic suggestions for us as individuals and for our partners. And so I would really give the challenge to anybody to pay attention to, is this actually safe, or is this just something that I've learned creates safety for me that actually doesn't? Yeah.
And I'll put the big asterisk on the end. If you're in a relationship where you're experiencing physical, psychological, emotional abuse, this podcast doesn't apply to you. You need to leave. You need to be safe. You can't fix a relationship that's in that area. We're not meeting basic human respect and decency. And so I know a lot of times some of these more positive, like let's talk it through, like let's be slow, can be misinterpreted by those who are in active relationship abuse. This does not apply for active relationship abuse. Physical, emotional, psychological abuse is a non-starter. We're not even getting to this conversation. So let that just be clear. But other than that, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions. Share it in the responses to the emails and the comment section down below. And until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.